Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. So I'm going to be continuing from where I left off last time, which was single quotes, where I started double quotes I think last time, and I think it was not the best place to actually have left off because to have ended the stream because uh, I ended it on a note of incompleteness, and I think that's not good. In the sense that I was actually struggling with implementing double quotes, and that's where I left off. So I think, I was just the context here is I was just reading Terrence Tao's blog where he talks about at the end of a work session you should try to wrap things up as much as possible, and that's what I should try to be doing. I should try to be doing. Okay, why does that sound wrong? Anyway, that's what I should try to do. Okay, that's what I should try to do. Uh, anyway, um, so I think today I want to complete double quotes. Am I recording? Let me just double check. Yeah, I am recording. Oh yeah, and I moved the camera up top to the top right. I've been watching George Hotz, and I've been taking cues from his streams on how I can better improve my own streams. And yeah, just talking to the camera is very nerve-wracking because, well, I'm kind of aware of like all the mistakes that I'm making and all the imperfections in my speech and my ideas and so on. But I think it's very useful, and it's going to help me get better at communication in general. So I'm going to continue doing this. Anyway, so let's start implementing double quotes. So yesterday we left off at single quotes, and yeah, so the context is that single quotes I was able to implement it, but again, it doesn't quite click. Of course, there is something related to state that I maintained, and I think this is a common idea. However, I'm sure there is a more formal way to do this, and it just doesn't click, however, but it does work, and I can see why it works, and I don't want to just continually loop on this over and over again uh, uh, because I don't think that's going to help. I think what's going to help is just regulating my motion and moving on. Uh, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so let's start off with double quotes. So yeah, I think one thing I'm going to try is to work in half an hour chunks, so that uh, I am able to retain my concentration and my ability to focus. I think working for more than an hour really messes with more than an hour at a time without a break messes with my ability to focus. So that's something that I'm going to try. Um, so I'm going to work for half an hour, take a 5-minute break or a 10-minute break, work for another half an hour, and try that, yeah. And I'm going to increase the volume. It turns out that the volume is quite low in my streams, but yeah, this is okay, I think. It is set at the max volume, so I wanted to get up to yellow, though. So is there a way for me to do that? Properties. Advanced audio properties. Is there a way to increase this? Is there a way to increase this? Is there I'm trying to see if I'm able to get this to the yellow bar. Mm. Ah, right, percentage. Okay, there's possibly, can I increase it to 125%? Let's try doing this instead. Hello? 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 Yeah, I don't think this works. Advanced audio properties, it still seems to be in the green bar. I wanted to move up to yellow. What if I increase this to 200? What if I increase this to 200? Hello? Yeah, I think this moves it up to the yellow bar. I hope this moves it up to the yellow bar. Okay. Yeah, let me actually reset it. I'm really not comfortable with this. I don't want to mess up the entire stream. I just want to reset everything. Okay. So I think I'll figure this out after this stream, after the recording. I'll try to figure it out after, and we'll see where to go from there. Anyway, so I think it's recording. Let's start with double quotes. In this stage, we'll implement support for quoting with double quotes. Most characters within double quotes are treated literally, with a few exceptions that will be covered in later stages. Read more about quoting with double quotes here. The tester will execute your program like this. It will then send a series of echo commands to your shell. Echo, cuz, hello, bar, shells, foo. The tester will check if the echo command correctly prints the quoted text. Then it will also send a cat command with the file name parameter enclosed in double quotes. Interesting. The tester will check if the cat command correctly prints file content. Great. So I think here, yesterday, where I was stuck was that a double quote can contain a single quote. And so here, the input process shouldn't get tripped up on that and end up starting a single quote state. So that's something that I need to account for. So I'm supposed to start a single quote phase or a single quote state only if I'm not in a double quote state, which is not straightforward, I think. So here we have process input. And here, instead of just having one state now, I'm supposed to maintain two states, single quote state and double quote state. And so I'm going to have multiple conditions within the for loop here, which is interesting. And again, it's not straightforward. And I'm sure that there are going to be other rules that I'm going to have to apply in the future. So there are considerations related to making it extensible. But I feel as though that's very complicated. I'm not able to reason about it. So I'm going to try to just do it the hard code way, where I try to just slap on double quotes into the code that I've already written. And I know that it's not the best way to approach it, but I don't think I have a better solution at the moment. I think ultimately, though, a better solution would be to learn about parsing, to learn formally about parsing, and see what the state of the art or the theory behind parsing is. Okay, so let's get started. Double quotes. So whenever I see a double quote, everything inside the double quote should be treated literally, including single quotes. So yeah, I'm just trying to get my foot in the door here. Yes, another thing to account for is not just single quotes within double quotes, but also double quotes within single quotes. So that's another thing to account for. So oops. Right, of course. So I'm going to set double quote state equals not double quote state. And so, and here, and not double quote state. Then I'm going to continue. Yeah, so I'm trying to process this part of the code now. So I think this should work. This should set the state correctly. And I'm trying to process this part of the code where I try to examine spaces and other and try to build the current string. If not, okay, let me just try to go over this. If not quote state, right, okay, so this is if it's not quote state or not double quote state. Oh, this is and actually, because so as long as I'm not in a quote state, and I think I should try to. So is the precedence here okay? I think the precedence here. I think it should be okay. Yeah, there is nothing majorly complicated about this logical statement. So I think the precedent rules here are okay. So as long as I'm not in any quote state, single quote state or double quote state, then I can. And if it's a space, then I'm gonna append it. Otherwise, plus equals C. Yeah, so I think this is all good. And if quote state, so this is just going to be else, I think, because it means that I'm in one of the quote states. So I don't need the conditions explicitly. I don't need that, so I can just put an else here. I can just replace it with an else here. Cur plus equals C if cur is not equals. Yeah, I think yesterday I commented about this, which, so in the actual shell, if you have something that's not, if you're in a single quote or double quote state, then you're prompted for, to finish the single or double quote string. Yeah, I think that should work. It feels very clumsy though, but I can't think of a better solution right now. And it's pretty interesting. So it seems like file names in Linux can actually contain the single quote character, which is surprising. So it seems like the shell and Linux are not as, yeah, this is a very broad statement to be making, but they in my head, the first thought that comes to my mind is they're not as tightly integrated as one would have assumed. Especially with the tilde character, where the tilde character, the shell interprets it as the home directory, but it's possible for one to name a file containing, with a name that contains the tilde character. Yeah, I think this should work. Let's try to run it. Awesome. Okay, let's run this. Cause hello bar, this seems right. Let's try to embed single quotes within double quotes to ensure that that works too. Perfect, this works too. And let's try to, so I don't have these files, but let's try to echo this instead. The temp file name, that's the first argument, and this is temp file name with spaces. I think this should actually work. Awesome. Yeah, no, I was just thinking I should probably modify exit to not require an argument, because in typical shells, I use exit without an argument, and so every time I try to do that now, it gives me an error, which is annoying. So I should probably modify that. Yeah, let's quickly just do it. Exit code equals. Actually, let's set exit code to 0. By default, let's assume that 0. If length of input is greater than or equal to 2, so the first input is going to be the command itself. Perfect, and it's going to exit with an exit code of 0. Cool. So let's get commit. Yeah, so the AM flag is very handy because I don't have to add and then commit. It saves me a bit of time every time I commit. Implement double quote support. Let's see if this works, and I think it should. Awesome, I think it works. This is really good, interesting. So yeah, just to qualify this, I think this is not the best way to do it. However, this is a way to do it, and I'm happy enough with this, so I'm just going to move on. But I have a feeling that trying to extend this any further is going to cause a lot of trouble, and so therefore at some point I'm going to have to look into the theory of parsing. But see, I don't know, like I might be able to derive the theory of parsing from first principles though, so that is a possibility. But Anyway, um, yeah, so all of you get to see what uh, my what a person who does not know the theory behind parsing's approach is to parsing. Um, so this is just me processing raw strings and trying to make sense of structured text. And if I'm able to derive the theory of parsing from essentially first principles, by first principles here I mean by trying to go through the process manually, try to find patterns that repeat in manual processing of text, and then try to form a theory and structure around it. I think that would be interesting. All right, let's move on to the next stage. Backslash outside quotes. In this stage, we'll implement support for quoting with backslashes. A non-quoted backslash is treated as an escape character. It preserves the literal value of the next character. Read more about backslashes here. Yeah, this is again very interesting. So it seems like Linux file names can also contain the backslash character, which is incredible. Let me try to actually create a file in my regular operating system. Oh, I'm sorry. That was created in the temp directory, which is interesting. Let me remove that, actually. For our purposes, I think I can just create a file here instead. Interesting. There seems to only be one backslash here, even though there are two backslashes in the file name. In this stage, we'll implement support. A non-quoted backslash is treated as an escape character, but this is a quoted backslash, so it shouldn't. So I think what I'm looking for is single quotes, and this is going to be two. Okay, so I think there is a distinction here, and they're wrong in the sense that a non-quoted backslash, a non-single quoted backslash is treated. A non-single quoted backslash is treated as an escape character. Okay, this is confusing. And one of the things that's confusing is whether they're asking for non-quoted backslash or they're asking for non-single quoted backslash. And this example, in my opinion, is not very clear. But maybe I should make an assumption and let's try to implement whatever exists in the real world. I think that would be very useful. So let's try to understand what exists in the real world. So in the real world, we have backslashes inside double quotes are treated as an escape character. That is, the character after them or is treated literally. And that is perhaps to embed double quotes within double quotes. But it feels as though it's going over my head what the purpose of single quotes and double quotes would be. But okay, so I think I've got to take this step by step. I'm trying to think of too many things at the same time, and that's not going to work. I've got to take this step by step. So the first, I think one of my major concerns here is that I don't intuitively understand why shells have single quotes and double quotes. I always have this, I'm always stuck on this question because even in Python you have single quotes and double quotes, and I'm the opinion that one should just keep it simple and have one kind of string. And it seems just confusing that inside double quotes, most things are taken literally. For example, spaces are construed literally by the compiler, but some other characters are not. And I don't have a mental model for this, and it just seems kind of bizarre. So double quotes is to make life easier with spaces, I assume, while at the same time allowing one to embed special symbols into the string. So for example, dollar, and that's for an array, and you can reference, I remember writing a script, an autograder script, where I created an array containing a map, essentially, a hash map, and a single quote is maybe a more advanced version of that, where everything is ignored, where you want to make life very simple. However, yeah, so one question is, what if there are single quotes what if there are single quotes within your single quoted text? So that's, in which case you're going to have to use double quotes, right, and in which case you'll have to escape characters using the backslash character. Interesting. Okay, so I think so the backslash and double quotes is for when you have single quotes in your escape character, and therefore you can't use single quotes because in single quotes everything is taken literally, unless of course there is a way to escape characters even in single quote, which there might be, but you're going to have to break the string up into multiple strings, I suppose, and embed double quotes and single quotes. So you might as well just have one big double quoted string and use the escape character within it and keep things simple. Yeah, so again, it's not a clean mental model, but I think I have verbalized some of my thoughts in relation to this, so yeah, so I think that's progress. Let's move on to like what I actually want to implement. Okay, I'm still a little confused but let's try to implement whatever exists in the real world. And if it fails, we'll try to modify it to make it in accordance with whatever Codecrafters expects us to do. So what exists in the real world is if it's a backslash and it's not in a single quote state, if it's a backslash and it's not in a single quote state, then I just append whatever the next character is to cur. But what if cur does not, cur is empty? So the logic here is if C is backslash and it's not in closed state, interesting. So it seems like Python itself has backslash support, so I'm gonna have to use single quotes. Oh, interesting. Wow, that reminds me of Inception, where you have this recursive thing. So it seems like single quotes and double quotes work differently in Python than they do in Shell. Yeah, there's a lot of details here, which is like fascinating. I actually don't know if these are things that can just be avoided. I would just have, I don't know. And then, there's like multi-line string literals with the tilde character, but that's in Go, I think, not in Python. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, so if I'm not in a quote state, that is, I'm not in a single quote state, and I see a backslash character, then I'm gonna append or add to cur the next character in the input. Next character. So getting that next character is a subtask, which I think is difficult. And so that's one component about what I'm concerned. Then the other component that concerns me is that what if there is a space before backslash? Let me try to formulate it better. What if there is nothing? What if cur is empty before a backslash? I don't know why that case is popping into my mind, but that feels like something that I need to account for. And I myself have no idea what that means. So you have backslash, and it's not a single quote, so you're just, but if it's empty, sure, even if it's empty, it should be okay. So one example is echo, hello, and then you're gonna have, and then you have multiple spaces, and then you have this, and then you have a space, and then you say world. And then so this is going to print hello, this is going to be effectively hello, and there's going to be a space here, and we're going to say world. Let me confirm that. Perfect. That's how it is. So I'm implementing however it is in the real world. So hello world. it's not in single quote state. If cur equals this and it's not in single quote state, cur equals the next character in the input. Or I hope it's clear what I'm doing here. Instead of getting the next part of the string, next character, and appending it in the current iteration itself, I'll just set a state. And in the next iteration, I check for that state. And if it is that state, I just append to the string and I just move on. And here, I'm supposed to I think this is it, actually. Again, I feel like, yeah, I'm just like piecing things together here and I don't have a very clear understanding of what I'm doing. But I think that's how things are with complicated programs. But let me try to rethink this just to see that it works. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a new escape state. And whenever I see the backslash character, and I'm not in a quote state, then I set the escape state. But if I am in a quote state, then oh, so I've got to also account for double quote state. Whew, okay, that's where so I think that's where my concern was, because I'm not sure how this plays with differently with double quote state and single quote state. Yeah, I think I should probably break it down into subcases. Otherwise, it's just very difficult to keep it all in my head, because I'm trying to solve 3 different states at the same time in my head, and that's not possible, and that's not easy. So I think let me break it up into subcases and try to do it that way. Okay. So let's first handle the case where you are in single when we are in single quote state and see a backslash character. So if I'm in single quotes here and see a backslash character, what am I supposed to do? Well, if I'm in single quote state, then I'm supposed to just append the backslash to the current string. So I think this condition takes care of that, where it's going to append. So I think this is where it's going to append to cur. I think that's handled. Okay, so that's handled. And what if I see a backslash in the double quote state? Double quote. So if I see a backslash in the double quote state, in the real world, it functions as an escape character. It does function as an escape character. So this is going to be set to true. But in the example that's given in Codecrafters, I think any kind of quoted state makes the backslash character literal. Makes the backslash character literal. A non-quoted backslash is treated as an escape character, but a quoted, it's treated literal. The backslash is treated literally. So here, which is, okay, so this is interesting. There we go, perfect. So this is actually false. So I think before, after is not actually gonna, interesting, okay, so it seems like, wow. Okay, so let me just try to explain what's causing surprise here. The escape character sometimes works as an escape character, but sometimes does not, which is interesting. Wow, okay. So if there is something, so this knows that I'm in a double, so this seems to be a lot more intelligent, in the sense that if it is in a double quoted state, and I see a backslash character, it means that I'm going to escape only characters that wouldn't have been escaped were I not to have used the escape character. But I think I'm gonna just I think our implementation can be simple, and what we can do is we can but what about this here? Oh my god, okay. Yeah, I feel like the instructions are not clear. Learn more about quoting with backslashes here. Oh, perfect, okay. So I think they do want us to implement whatever bash actually implements. A non-quoted backslash is the bash escape character. Okay, removing any special meaning with the exception of new line. Wow, this is difficult to process. Wow. Yeah, I feel as though I believe this is unnecessarily complicated. It's just too many conditions here. And I think that things should just be simple. It's just unnecessary complication. The backslash retains its special meaning only when followed by one of these characters. My god. This is just, oh my god, this is so annoying. So what I'm going to implement for now, I don't want to implement that. It's just unbelievably complicated. I feel as though it's unnecessarily complicated. So I'm going to preserve yeah, so I think I can perhaps add a comment after I complete this, because I expect that the creators of this stage itself have not understood how backslashes work. And I think they literally mean two backslashes here. So I think if I need to ignore backslash even if it's in double quote state. So if backslash and not double quote state and not quote state and double quote state, then I set escape state to true. But if it is in double quote state, then I'm just going to add it to whatever that thing is. I'm just going to add it to the string. Okay. So let's try this. So I think, oops. So this should print two backslashes. Perfect. And echo. The world should print. Okay, this is very interesting. Oh, I need to continue. I'm sorry. There we go. I don't even reason through what happened without the continue. This is going to be too complicated. So let's try to echo this. And I assume, so in the real world, the echo is going to only show up with a single backslash, but this is going to show up with two backslashes. Okay. Great. Exit works. That's good. Implement backslash support. I have a feeling that it's gonna fail, and they're gonna expect a double backslashes inside double quotes to function the way they do in Bash. But I don't want to do that. It seems unnecessarily complicated, and I refuse to do that. Oh wow. Okay, it does pass. Okay, that's good, but it's technically wrong. To be sure, let me show you why it's wrong. So the reason it's wrong is because if you copy this and paste it in an actual shell, the first one only shows up with what? Okay, something's wrong here. Let me open up another shell. That's interesting. Temp file name. Isn't this supposed to be right? So I think the new line here was oh, I'm using ZSH, right? Oh yeah, there we go. So I think there is a bug in ZSH where printing \n causes it to literally print a new line character, which is bizarre and kind of disconcerting because I would expect our production level software to be better. Yeah, I hope my finance software is not this badly written. I could be wrong, but it seems like there's a problem here. But I don't have the bandwidth to make a comment on this right now, to add a comment to the official repository right now. So let's just move on. Okay, so let's actually take a break. It's been 45 minutes since I started working on this, so I think this is a good time to take a break. Yeah, let's break for about... Yeah, let's just break for about 10 minutes. And yeah, so I kind of, yeah, so let's just talk about things, right? So, yeah, for me, break is not so much a break from cognition itself, but rather a break to process other things that have been making their way into my mind. So I think by default, I'm a very cognitive person, and so I'm thinking about a lot of other things. I think what's really bothering me about this, okay, is that what's really bothering me about this particular module is that I'm not implementing this the way I think it's supposed to be implemented. So that is a thought that I have to process, and that's emotionally affecting me when I'm actually trying to program the shell. And I feel as though I'm eventually going to get to a place, going to get to a stage where it's just impossible to make any extensions because of how complicated my code is. And I think that's a valid concern. However, the alternative doesn't look too good either. The alternative is reading up on theory related to parsing and then implementing this. But I've not had a very good track record with first learning things and then implementing them. So this is something new that I'm trying out, where I just implement things from first principles. But of course, I have run into situations where it's just impossible to make any progress because of how complicated my code is. Yeah, it's difficult to shake off that feeling, but I think other stages are going to be more interesting. And in any case, I think I should like extract happiness from the fact that I am able to program a given specification. I'm able to, however clunky my code is, I'm able to, given a particular specification, I'm actually able to code it up. And of course, if I want to implement arrays and all, I'm going to have to take a compilers class. And sure, I think there might be theory there that is interesting. But I might actually do that at some point. Take a compilers class and learn how to process structured text, because I don't know why I feel so terrible about the way I'm doing this. Yeah, it's pretty. It's am I being unreasonable? Am I being unreasonable here? Unreasonable to myself? Because if I were to learn how to parse and then do it, that would be the right way to do it. But there's no guarantee that I'm ever going to get to the finish point where I learn and then I'm comfortable enough with what I've learned that I can implement things. And I wonder how other people have done the same thing. I don't know, but I think just in terms of converting thought into a program, I think, sure, I think I've done a good job. Converting thoughts into tangible, into concrete lines of code, which I think is good. Okay, I'm gonna grab some water. Okay, 10 minutes are up. This was actually a much needed break. Yeah, I think it's better to take frequent breaks in between work sessions just in order to think about why you're working on whatever it is that you're working on, because cognition is expensive and it's hard. So taking a break allows me to just put things in perspective and just motivate myself to continue. And yeah, I feel better now, and so I think I'm gonna continue. Great. So it seems like a backslash within single quotes has passed, which is interesting. I'm gonna view the instructions here. So let's start the next work session. So let's try to process this. So backslash within single quotes. What does that mean? So in single quotes, if I see a backslash, I'm supposed to just not care about it and just append it literally. Within single quote is treated literally, no escaping is performed. Read more about quoting with backslashes within single quotes here. Sure, yeah, that's backslashes inside single quotes. Then it will also send a cat command with the file name parameters consisting of backslashes inside single quotes. I'm sorry, this is not a single quote. These are double quotes. Backslashes inside, so here, I see only one backslash here and it's inside a double quote and not a single quote. Which, wow. But anyways, I think I have handled this here. If it's a backslash and it's not quote state, I've ensured that if it's in quote state, then I'm going to just add to the current string. So I think I'm just going to move on. I think this example is wrong, but I don't have the motivation to correct this. But yeah, it's my implementation completes this. Good. Let's do this. It's apparently running tests, which is interesting. Backslashes within double quotes. Okay, so I think this is going to fail, which is interesting. So this is actually something that they want us to implement. So whatever I talked about previously is what they want me to implement. Perfect. Okay, so this is something worth implementing. So you'll implement support for quoting with backslashes within double quotes. Within double quotes, a backslash escapes the following characters. Double quote, backslash, dollar, tilde, I'm sorry, this is a backtick, or new line. Read more about quoting with backslashes within double quotes here. In this stage, we'll cover double quotes, escapes backslash, resulting in a literal backslash. We won't cover the following cases in this stage, allowing non-continuation. Perfect, okay. So let's do this. Yeah, it's getting difficult to reason about this. It's not clean, it just seems like there are too many disconnected cases and it's difficult to fit in my head. So right now, within a double quote, backslashes are being treated literally. However, if I am in double quote state, So I'm going to need the next character for this case. So let me add a continue here. Sorry. So in input, so assuming that it's just characters, and I don't want to get into the specifics of characters themselves, where it's a character is made up of like many different bytes, and that is a whole complication in and of itself. But just assume that it's a bunch of characters. That's how we humans think about it, and that's I think how computers should think about it too. I don't care about the representation as much. But I think it's good to be aware that the string encodings are complicated. I think this is how it works. I think this should get it working, but it's just hello backslash world. Let's try this. Okay. Yeah, this is just ridiculous, honestly. This whole backslash thing, because they're not providing the names of the files, and this is so ridiculous. It's just so badly written. Cool. I think that should work. Yeah, this is not production code. This is yeah, it's just ridiculous. That's what it is. So I don't know what exactly these files contain, right? So how am I supposed to know what this outputs? Blueberry, pineapple. I have no idea why a dot and dollar sign are outputted. I have no idea. And this cat, I assume it's because, yeah, I think it could be because the file names are incorrect. So I'm gonna have to ensure that these work as intended. So this single quote is going to be escaped. This is going to be escaped. So I think this is just going to be this. So if I echo this, yeah, it's just that, which I think is okay, which I think my shell handles. Just to confirm, yeah, this is handled just fine. This is going to be just this. So here backslashes, since a special character does not follow a backslash, we're all good. So this is going to be just whatever is inside the double quotes. So I think here's where the problem is. There we go. That's the problem. So here, it should print a backslash 2. Because inside double quotes, backslash should follow the backslash unless followed by another backslash or by a double quote. It should be printed literally. So I think that's where the problem is. So for example, if I paste this in a regular bash shell, this is what is printed. Okay. So that's it. That is what I've got to fix. So here, so when I get here, I'm going to be in double quote state, right? Yeah, I think this is wrong, but I can't figure out why it's wrong. So this is true. When I see backslash, this is true. And it's in double quote state. All right, okay. And it's in double quote state. And, oh, right, okay. If next character is a backslash or a double quote, then escape. Otherwise, what do we do if the next character is not? Then we just proceed with the rest of the cases. We just proceed with the rest of the cases. If, oh, I'm sorry. This should be this. Wow, okay, so this just evaluates it true every time? Wow, okay, I didn't know Python allowed that. Wait, that's kind of ridiculous. Oops. There we go. There we go. So, wow, okay, so the problem was here, it was always escaping because of this OR. I'm not sure what exactly the problem was here. So I think OR, this always is set to true, and then it always ends up escaping whatever is after. Wow, okay. I think that's kind of stupid, actually. I think this is never executed, and so therefore it never runs into an error. Wow, okay. So it turns out that Python is weakly typed. So that's the term that comes to mind. I assume that you needed a Boolean. Oh, okay. That's interesting. I feel like this should not be allowed. It should only be Boolean values, because this is kind of vague. This is something that I would expect from C, but not from Python. Wow, okay. So this is unexpected. So it seems like in Python, to an if statement, you can pass any value at all. And different values, I assume, have different things, different truth values. But again, I feel like that's very vague, and that should not be allowed. And it ends up leading to bugs like this, which intuitively makes sense. If this equals this or that, but in terms of code, you're going to have to specify it differently. So let's see if this works. I think this should probably work. Preventing variable expansion, preventing command substitution, and we have new line, allowing line continuation. Awesome, so I've got this working. Okay. Executing a quoted executable. In this stage, you'll implement support for executing a quoted executable. But why would I need to implement this separately when I have already implemented it as part of the previous stages? Okay, I'm actually going to just mark this as done. I'm sick of quoting. I'm just going to move on to redirecting std out. Yeah, let's just move on to something other than parsing. That's going to help with my motivation. Yeah, this thing seems like an interesting thing because we're printing to the standard output, but sometimes we're gonna have to um, write to a file instead of writing to a standard output. So we're gonna have to abstract away um, output. We're gonna have to, instead of print, we're supposed to call the function, write a function to uh, write to the standard output. And in the standard output, I'm supposed to write to the file descriptor that is the effective standard output. So I'm gonna have to replace all the prints with function calls to uh, to the function that writes to the effective standard output. And another interesting thing about this is that it seems like one followed by the rightward facing angular bracket is an operator, and by default the right angular bracket, the greater than symbol is represents the standard output. The output is redirected to the standard output by default. You mean the output of the standard output is redirected by default? I think this is incorrect. So I think the output of the standard output is redirected by default. So I think this is going to be 2 followed by an angular bracket. Redirect the standard error of a command to a file. Cool. Let's implement this. This seems pretty interesting. So I think the easy part here would be to write the function that abstracts away the Right, so there's actually a lot of pieces here. So, assuming that I have a file, then I can just say f dot write. So, I'm not sure what file type is in Python, what type files are in Python, but let me just do not D&D my phone. Okay, yeah, this is difficult to move around in my head, but I think I can do it. It's just that there are a lot of pieces here. So I think yeah. For some reason, I believe that approaching it the other way is going to be better now. I don't think writing the abstraction function first is going to be useful, because I think it's important to know how exactly the abstraction function is going to be called before writing it. So I'm going to process. Okay, let's actually do that. Yeah, let's actually focus on processing the input, and here I'm going to return. Right, so here I'm returning a string. So I think instead of returning a string, I can instead return an object that contains the standard output to write to. But for that, I'm going to have to know what the standard output is. I'm going to have to know what the file to write to is. And it's going to have to, I assume that it's going to have to pass all the other tests. It's going to have to implement single quotes, double quotes, and all of that. It's going to have to satisfy those requirements. And I assume this is required to be at the very end, and we're supposed to throw an error if it's not at the very end. So it feels like there are actually a lot of cases here to cover. Yeah, there's a lot of cases to cover here. So for example, oh, interesting. So this is an operator. Oh, interesting. And this is interpreted literally. Wow. This is complicated. This has many conditions to account for. Okay, so I'm actually not in the mood for this. I'm gonna probably do this later, at a later time. But it's pretty interesting how there are so many cases, and how we're imposing structure on unstructured text. It's pretty interesting. And yeah, I think I'm just repeating the same mistake from last time, where I'm ending work at a position where I am not where it's incomplete, and that's unfortunate. But I really don't want to do this now, so I'm just not going to. I feel as though just thinking about this and processing this with some downtime is really going to help me, and just because I'm starting to appreciate just the level of structure that's kind of imposed on this unstructured text, and I just want to think about it. I just want to go over it, in my downtime. So that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, so other modules here are auto-completion, which is interesting. So every time you see a tab, I think we're supposed to autocomplete. And I suppose we're supposed to go over different files in the directory and compare file names with whatever exists so far. Pipelines, which is interesting, are supposed to connect the standard output of one file to the standard input of another process. History, great. So you write the history of a particular, so you write all the commands that were entered into a history. History persistence, wow, okay. So this is an interesting project. I have a lot of thoughts about the whole parsing thing, and I'm gonna have to I'm just gonna have to think about how parsing works, and try to make peace with my feelings about doing things incorrectly, doing things very hackily, for lack of a better term. But I think redirection is going to be very interesting. This is something that I'm excited about. So that's what I'm going to do in my next work session, redirection. And I'm just thinking, like, how do I want to end this stream? So I actually also wanted to talk about, so this stream here is part of my effort to understand the nature of my cognition better. And one of the things that I wanted to do was go over Terence Tao's talk about AI and math and the sciences. And yeah, so I had a lot of comments about how he seemed to know a lot about different fields, and he seemed to be very knowledgeable about many different fields, and I had a lot of comments about that, but perhaps that's better suited for another separate kind of video. And I'm just going to keep this related to work sessions. I'm just going to keep this type of video restricted to work sessions. So, yeah. So I'm pretty tired. I'm just going to go now. But yeah, I had fun doing this, and I hope my cognition gets better. Thanks. Where is it? Yes. There we go.